Before we start, warning. Spoilers ahead. Today, I'm going to recap a 2013 Korean drama history movie called The Face Reader. This movie is about a man who can read a person's personality just by looking at their faces. However, he gets entangled in the kingdom's power struggle and has to face many hardships. So, how can his talent help him? Will he survive in the end? Let's find out. In one cold night, a king's advisor is scared to death that he is going to be beheaded, as it was prophesied so by a face reader. He claims that this greatest face reader in Chosun can predict your personality, most compatible working area, your past and future, and even alter it by making changes on your face. Many years ago, the face reader, Naekyung, lives in seclusion, as his father used to be a traitor, which makes his name hated throughout the country. One day, a man and a woman approach him in a hut. He lives with his brother-in-law, who is also his assistant, and his only son. His son doesn't like him to be a face reader, so they have to keep it from him. On the other hand, son is a smart boy who wants to be a public official and defends the people. However, Naekyung doesn't let him, as their track record is too bad and he will only be punished for it. Finally, Naekyung meets the mysterious man and woman who pose as business partners. Just by a look on their face, he knows that they are lying about their profession. Hearing this, the two eventually expose their identity. Madame flirts with Naekyung and introduces herself as the owner of a well-known courtesan house. She comes with her secretary to hire Naekyung to be a face reader in her house. That night, they feast upon the face-reading money, and Sun immediately knows it, resulting in an argument. Naekyung plans to accept Madame's job secretly and asks his assistant to cooperate. However, they wake up late and Sun has gone off on his own to be an official. Seeing his determination, Naekyung reluctantly lets him go to chase his dream. Meanwhile, Naekyung and his assistant arrive in the courtesan house. Madame immediately welcomes them with a big feast and lots of girls. That night, they get really drunk and blindly enter a disadvantageous contract with Madame. The next morning, they are immediately worked to the bone at a low wage. Can't stand the treatment, they secretly enter a mysterious room in hope to meet important clients. Turns out, it's a room where Madame inspects the girls' private parts. Suddenly, the secretary comes in to inform her of an important guest's arrival. The guest is a supporter of Kim, a high-ranking official who actively supports the king's rule and fights the notorious traitor, Prince Soo-young. The guest comes to ask for a face reading to capture a murderer. Naekyung immediately sees this as a chance and accepts the task. Naekyung inspects the suspects, but cannot find a murderer among them. However, he successfully captures the murderer, who is also the victim's husband, as their personality don't match in their marriage. Unbeknownst to them, the murderer is one of Soo-young's men and they capture him. Soo-young's schemer sees him as a threat and orders them to kill him. Fortunately, they manage to jump into the well, and Kim's men arrive to save them. The next morning, Kim personally invites them to talk. Naekyung is immediately amazed by Kim's face, which resembles a tiger. Due to his amazement, Naekyung accepts a job from Kim to help him hire trustworthy officials into the government. He trains the inspectors to read the faces, and even advises them on the best candidate for various jobs. In addition, he manages to capture a rotten official who has been corrupting the government's inventory. Naekyung's popularity is boosted even further due to the event, and people line up to get their fate changed. Meanwhile, Naekyung's popularity reaches the palace and the king wants to see him. At first, King doesn't like his talent of reading people through faces, as it's the same as determining someone's future from their physical traits. However, deep inside, King is concerned about the traitors among the government officials. So, he unofficially visits Naekyung and gives him a mission to root out the potential traitors in the country. Starting that day, Naekyung studies the faces of important politicians who have betrayed their country. Then, he visits every suspect one by one, reads through them, and reports it directly to King. Finally, the last suspect is Prince Soo-young. Under the tense atmosphere, he eventually meets Soo-young. However, he makes strange twitchings and Naekyung rules him out of the traitors list. Hearing this, King reveals that he is gravely ill and appoints Naekyung as his son's advisor, should he die. Then, Naekyung comes back to assess the new officials who have passed the tests. he is surprised to see his son, under another name, passed with the highest score. They decide to keep their relationship hidden, so son can climb up the rank. Then, he gets home and receives a letter from King. Turns out, King has died and officially entrusts his son, the new king, to Naekyung and Kim. Then, Kim invites Naekyung to meet Soo-young officially. Naekyung is surprised to see that Soo-young is a whole different person from what he has seen and gives out a very intimidating aura. He is very ambitious and has a wolf-like face, traits that really describe a traitor. Naekyung finds himself fooled by Soo-young's men, who posed to be Soo-young during his unofficial visit before. Soo-young recognizes Naekyung and invites him to his party later. When Naekyung is on his way home, the schemer reveals himself again and abducts him. He threatens him to tell the new king that Kim is the traitor. Schemer even promises to restore their family name, should Soo-young become the king. Naekyung continuously thinks of the offer, as it will save his son's career. Meanwhile, Soo-young has gathered an army from outside the kingdom, and sends a declaration of war to Kim. The next day, Soo-young holds a party for all face readers and fortune tellers. One by one, they come up front to speak of Soo-young's greatness and his bright future as a king. However, the atmosphere changes when he catches one of the face readers lying to please him, so he immediately executes her. Next, he asks Naekyung to read his face, but Naekyung still can't decide who to support and stays silent. Then, he spends some time with his son. Seeing how righteous his son is, he decides to support the legitimate king and Kim. And so, the fight between the two opposing parties starts. Kim and Naekyung, who want to root out Soo-young and support the new king, versus Soo-young and Schemer, who want to kill the new king and plant a fake king to take over the throne. Finally, Kim and Naekyung come clean to King and tell him about Soo-young. However, King defends Soo-young as he is his beloved uncle. That night, King spends some time with Soo-young. Soo-young intends to kill him with a poison needle. Luckily, King sees his shadow and his plan fails. Suddenly, the guard's chain shifts and Kim's men take over the security. The shift is unwelcomed by Soo-young and he lashes out, which makes him suspicious. King starts to believe Naekyung and studies face reading. Meanwhile, Naekyung finds that Soo-young's men have flooded the palace and discovers the poison needle. They plan to capture Schemer as he is the mastermind behind the coup tactics. However, Naekyung hasn't seen his face and only remembers his voice. Kim entrusts Naekyung with some of his men to help the search. Naekyung successfully identifies Schemer, but cannot find him in Soo-young's place. He feels hopeless as all of his efforts have been for nothing. Fortunately, Naekyung hears from Kim that King is studying face reading. He plans to add a trait on Soo-young's face, one that indicates a traitor. So, he invites Madam as his partner. The next day, Naekyung and Madam disguise themselves as doctors to tend to Soo-young, who got sick. They anesthetize Soo-young, carefully draw 3 moles on Soo-young's face, and quickly get away before he wakes up. Meanwhile, Naekyung's son has become an official and remembers a corrupt official's face. The official joins the rank with a yellow tag, a recommendation from Kim. Son reports the tagging problem to King himself and King discusses it with Soo-young. Suddenly, King notices Soo-young's new moles and remembers a well-known traitor's face from his study. He finally remembers Kim's and Naekyung's warnings. In addition, he realizes that he has been surrounded by Soo-young's men all this time. Finally, King officially orders Kim to exile Soo-young from his kingdom. Kim plans to capture Soo-young when his men are out to escort the Chinese. On the other hand, Naekyung is looking for medicine for his son in the mountains. At the palace, Kim is informed that Naekyung's son has advised the king to stop his recommendation tagging program. Kim is furious and secretly sends his men to blind Naekyung's son's eyes. That night, Assistant rushes to his nephew who is already half-blind. He hears that this is Kim's doing, so he comes to Soo-young who is giving a reception to the Chinese. Under the rainy night, Assistant reveals the king's and Kim's plan to exile him and warns him about it. Soo-young thanks him and promises to restore their family name, should he be the next king. Unfortunately, all of the incidents are going according to Schemer's plan. He knew about Naekyung and his son's relationship, so he planted a corrupt official under Kim's recommendation program and hurted son under Kim's name. Naekyung gets back from the mountains and hears all of it from Assistant. However, he knows that Kim is not a traitor, so he rushes to aid him. Suddenly, Soo-young and his men come to kill Kim. Naekyung saves Kim from the surprise attack. However, Kim is greatly outnumbered. Eventually, Kim is stabbed several times and furiously fights for his life, before finally being knocked out and dies. Naekyung tries to warn the palace, but Schema reveals his face and stops him. Then, Soo-young and his men storm the palace to kill the king's supporters. Soo-young officially announces himself as the new king, and makes enemies of the previous king's men. Lots of just men and women are killed on that bloody night. The previous king cries as his father's legacy is destroyed just after he is in charge. The next day, Naekyung finds his son on his way to execution for defying the new king. He begs Soo-young to spare him. Once more, Soo-young asks whether he is fit to be a king, and Naekyung answers that he will be a king. Soo-young likes the answer and spares them. However, he turns back and executes Naekyung's son, as he is already a king and doesn't need Naekyung's prophecy. The incident gravely saddens Naekyung and his assistant, for they have failed to keep their family safe. Months later, Madam leads Schema to Naekyung's seclusion. Schema wants to recruit Naekyung to join Soo-young's rank. However, Naekyung firmly rejects the offer and reads Schema's face instead. He prophesied that Schema will be beheaded. Fast forward to the present, the prophecy has greatly frightened the Schema, so he hasn't made any enemies since then. In addition, Soo-young had atoned for his sins, before finally dying days later. In the end, Schema finally dies due to old age. However, he is beheaded posthumously due to an old case. Turns out, Naekyung knew that Soo-young wouldn't live long and that the Schema was the one who would stir chaos in the kingdom, so he told him that he was going to be beheaded to tame him. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like and comment to help the channel out. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.